Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about there's something about the PLN. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me go ahead and start the presentation. All right, here we go. I'm doing it all wrong. See, that's what happens under pressure, under pressure, under pressure. Isn't that a Queen song? But anyway, I'm super glad you're here. So we're talking about the PLN. So thank you so much, Stormy. I see you introducing yourself in here. Shout out to Stormy. We were talking just beforehand, and we've been connected for years. So I'm super glad that you're here, and I'm super glad that everyone is here. So if you haven't already done so, please feel free to introduce yourself in the comments, as well as put any Twitter handle or social media information that you may have. And that way we can all follow each other and start our own PLN. So PLN, if you're unfamiliar with the term, it's a professional learning network. Some people say a personal learning network. It could really be either. In my life, it's been kind of a mashup of the two, professional and personal. What started off as professional connections, in many cases, have become some of my closest friends. So absolutely, the PLN is both personal and professional to me. So that's what PLN stands for if you haven't heard the term. So this session is going to be kind of a lot of the why behind it, and I'll illustrate it through some personal examples, but there will also be some of the what. And if you have a question that I don't necessarily answer in the presentation, again, please feel free to drop them in chat, or there might be a time where I ask you all some questions and I pause, so feel free to ask them at that time as well. So without any further ado, my name is Sarah Thomas. I am about to start my 16th year in education. Oh my gosh. And my Twitter handle is at Sarah the Teacher. All right. So if you are a tweeter, then please feel free to tweet me. It's very nice to tweet you. And you can also use the hashtags Microsoft EDU and hashtag GETA for Global EdTech Academy. All right. All right. So today, okay, let me give you a little bit of history behind this presentation. This was one of the first presentations that I have ever done. I first created back in 2014, around the time I started presenting, and it was called CPR for the drowning educator, right? And so when I decided to do this session again, I was just like, oh, this is a perfect time to revisit it now in 2020, because it's 6 years later. But now when we're seeing like remote learning at such a scale, and I'm hearing some people who are thriving through it, but some people are very burnt out. Even if they are thriving, it's a lot to handle. So I would like to give some of y'all that CPR again. Hey, Lisa, I see that Lisa's in the house. Freddie, hi everyone. Isabel, hello, Monique. So welcome to everyone who's joining us. Please introduce yourself whenever you get a chance in the comments. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get things started with a question. So I'm going to ask you, first question to you is, what's your story? So in a nutshell, the elevator version of your story. If somebody were to ask you, what was your journey into education? And I would love to see your responses. And hello to Haifa, who is just joining us right now. So if you have, if you'd like to share just a few lines about your own story, I would love to learn about it. Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about mine. So our stories are not always smooth sailing, right? Um, Sometimes we hit choppy waters. So here's a little bit about where I came from. Okay. So as a kid, I used to play school. And I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be many things. I wanted to be a singer, a rapper, an actress, a spy. But what kept coming back is that I wanted to be an educator. So my journey began back in 2003 when I graduated from Howard University. That's in Washington, D.C. And my bachelor's degree was in radio, television, film, right? It was not in education. It was in radio, television, and film. However, I had been working with kids my entire life. Like ever since I could start working, when I was 12 years old, I was a camp counselor or a junior camp counselor. When I was 13, I was a kids soccer referee, and so on and so on. Like I was working as a senior camp counselor for a while, working in a daycare. And I was just like, huh. So I think the turning point for me was when my mom started teaching, and I would go down to her classroom and I would help her with her students. So, she was teaching middle school French. So she started teaching that when I was in college. And by that point, I had already had enough credits, but I really wanted to go back to having that classroom of my own. All right. So I was just like, okay, I gotta make this happen. So I re-enrolled in a master's program. Came down the steps one day. There was a flyer on the wall for an alternative certification program for a nearby district. And I applied, and lo and behold, I got accepted. That's not me in the picture, by the way. That's just a stock image. But I was accepted for the alternative certification program. So pretty much what this entails, we took the whatever that's called, the test, the praxis, right? We took the praxis. We took whatever necessary classes we needed, and then after that, through the month of July, we had 4 days a week of intensive preparation sessions, from 9 to 5, and then on Fridays we would go in and we would shadow a summer school teacher, and then at the end of these 4 weeks, then we got our own classroom. So my question to you, how do you think it went? You think it went great? Awesome? It was horrible. I looked like this at the end of every day. I see Monique is saying, shout out to HU, Grambling State. Yes, HBCUs in the house. So I'm definitely sending that HBCU love right back to you. So my first few years were really, really bad, for lack of a better term. They were really, really bad. It was hard. And I felt like a game of Pac-Man. Like I was bouncing around just about every year, going from school to school to school. I was in 4 schools over my first 5 years because, yeah, exactly, James, what you're saying. I wanted to quit, and I was probably doubting myself. That's exactly how I felt. But I knew that I wanted to stay in there because with the kids, that feeling of, connecting with them, teaching them, I was just like, wow, I really want to be here. So I really felt alone, and I needed to be resuscitated. I found the lifeline I was looking for. The very first thing that happened, I want to say my 4th school was actually a really good experience, but my 5th school was when I started teaching technology integration. And I worked with a principal who trusted me and gave me that professional, let me use my professional judgment and my strengths, and actually empowered me as a leader. So my 4th and 5th schools, I had leadership roles. But I would say what made the biggest difference in the world is that I got connected. It was that simple. Establishing a personal / professional learning network really gave me a boost personally and professionally. So the truth is that none of us have to be alone. Our PLN can be our lifeline. There are millions of educators out there, potential collaborators, if we just take that magical moment to connect. All right, so once again, just to remind you of our goals for today, we are going to be talking about collaboration, we are going to be talking about passion and reinvention, and we're going to find ourselves right here in the middle, okay? So the very first thing that we're going to talk about is collaboration, okay? So life is sweet when you collaborate. So my question to you, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, and I'm going to invite you to unmute if you so choose, or put this in chat if you so choose. How do you collaborate? Like, in what ways do you collaborate with other folks? And hello to Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us. So feel free to introduce yourself in the comments, drop your Twitter handle if you have one, or any social media information where people could connect with you. All right, Kathy, I'm seeing you say grade level meetings. Fantastic. Okay, so let's take about 2 more. 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 Okay, I'm gonna give it some wait time. I know we're all educators, so you know what I mean when I say wait time. All right, so James is saying we meet all the time towards common goals in math. We do moderated marking. Okay, Monique is saying I collaborate in various PLNs, Iste, TCEA, EdWeb, and Jennifer dropped her Twitter handle. Thank you so much for that. Twitter, Stormy saying Twitter, Skype Classroom community, Microsoft Educator community. Isabel saying collaborated through Google Docs and Google Slides through Share. Absolutely. And all of these different resources that people are dropping, if they might be unfamiliar to you, then just go ahead, take a second and just look them up and maybe bookmark them. So Kay is saying right now on a reopening task force, so we have to collaborate. Absolutely. I totally 100% hear you on that. All right. Excellent. 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 So, Learning Forward TX is awesome too. Yes, Monique. Yes, 100%. So, all of these different resources, they are a gold mine that we can all learn from. So, I really want to thank you all so much for sharing the ways that you collaborate. And, I'm hearing about some new resources that I probably want to check out as well. So, wonderful. Okay, cool. So, we're going to dive into collaboration. So, I've been a I like collaboration. When you think of collaboration, some people might think of some superhero teams, right? Some people might think of some musical groups like the Jackson 5 over here. They collaborated on some great hits. One of my favorite cartoons is Captain Planet. And if you haven't seen this cartoon, let me tell you a little bit about it. You see these 5 kids, they're all from 5 different continents, and they each received a ring that this blue dude up in the sky, that when they collaborate and their powers combine, they can channel him and he can go fight the criminals who are polluting. And so this is an environmental cartoon from like the 90s, and it used to be my jam when I was when I was a little kid. And this cartoon really reminds me of the PLN because there's so many talents that each person has. Like this guy has the power of heart and he can empathize really well. This guy has firepower. He can shoot fire out of his ring. I think she has wind power. She has water power. He has earth power, can cause all kinds of earthquakes and stuff. So it's really interesting. And I feel like as educators, each of us has something to share. So when we do combine, then we can channel just such amazing energy like this superhero person, blue person. Yes, Bolton. Love it, love it, love it. Yes, Captain Planet. He's a hero, absolutely. And I'm looking through the chat and I'm seeing that Lisa is saying that she collabs with women in ed leadership and others on Voxer and with her school board colleagues. Absolutely. So there have been a lot of really great teams throughout history, right? Many of you are part of some phenomenal teams. Now, for me, I grew up playing sports. This is not me. This is actually one of my students in middle school with the soccer team. But yeah, I've been a big sports player all my life. I started out with t-ball, moved to soccer, then got into basketball, which was really my love, right? And the coaches used to say all the time, don't be a ball hog. There's no I in team. Well, there was a meme going on the internet, and it has been confirmed that guess what? There is an I in team. It is right there in the negative space. So the fact is that there are millions of people. How many people live in the world right now? There's like 7 billion people, right? 7 billion with a B. And I think that the number is even close to 8 billion at this point. So we have billions of eyes that have billions of eyes seeing things, right? They see these billions of things. So each of the letter I, each person can identify a need within his or her own sphere of influence and work together with others to address it. So, story time once again. Back in 2013, so we have fast forwarded now. from 2003. I was at a conference and I saw a hashtag, and I'm sure that you all are probably familiar with hashtags, especially if you're on Twitter, and probably if you're on Facebook, you've seen hashtags. So they were using this they were using this hashtag at a conference, and I wanted to participate in a conversation, but I knew I could not because my Twitter account at the time was reserved for Flavor Flav, Bret Michaels, Flavor of Love, all of these VH1 shows. So at that point, that's when I decided to create a brand new Twitter account from scratch. Totally random name, Sarah the teacher, right? Can't even shake it now. But on that date, April 23rd, 2013, 11:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that was kind of when my career version 2.0 kicked off once I got connected, right? So we already learned about Captain Planet. But anyway, so when I started using this Twitter account for professional purposes, then I found out about something called Twitter chats, which we're going to talk about a little bit in just a moment. But Twitter chats are basically when people get together at a certain time, they use a hashtag, which is pretty much a way to organize information. So they use the same hashtag and they answer the questions that the moderator is asking. And that is a great way to learn a lot, get a lot of coverage on the topic in a very short amount of time. So I started doing these Twitter chats. Bam, 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 Twitter chat, Twitter chat, Twitter chat. That was my life for a while. It was a little much, but I'm glad it happened, right? In addition, I started seeing calls for proposals for different conferences and things like that. So I was just like, all right, cool. Oh, and before I go on, I wanted to mention Stormy has a great tip, separating your social. Absolutely. And Monique is saying Twitter chats, lots of learning and fun. I agree 100%. So I started seeing like these Twitter chats come up. I would participate in them. I also started seeing calls for proposals, right, for different conferences. And I was just like, ooh, that's kind of cool. So I do some stuff. Maybe I could share it out. So one of the things was like flipping my classroom, which was something I learned about at a different conference that I had gone to. It wasn't the same one with the with the hashtag, but it was one right before that, and I had started doing that in my class. Flipping your classroom is preloading the content so your students can watch the videos, and then when they come to class, you can restructure the time and have kind of more face-to-face or small group interactions with your students. So I really enjoy that. So I started presenting on flipping the classroom, as well as gamification, which is basically turning your class, using game mechanics in your class. So you might use points, you might use levels when you're teaching, things like that, right? I'm way simplifying it right now, but I think I'm doing a session on gamification as well down the line. But anyway, soon I was presenting at different places. I like to say thanks to my rich aunt Sally Mae, but really that means I was in the doc program at the time, so whatever extra I had, I would kind of go to different conferences and present. Would I recommend that? No, but it was a risk that I took, and again, I'm glad I did. Okay, so Iste ordinarily would have been this coming week, right? But because of COVID, they moved it to November. But I went to my very first Iste. Any of you been to Iste? I know some of you have, like just seeing who's in here. But yeah, Iste is the International Society for Technology and Education. They are a great place. And speaking of Iste, they have their own built-in PLNs, right? I'm part of one called the Digital Equity PLN. And I know that, yep, Monique mentioned them as well. Yes, indeed. So Iste 2014 was my first Iste, and I presented there when a friend invited me to co-present with her about gamification. So a mutual friend of Lisa and mine, Shelly Sanchez. So she invited me. So it was just like, at that point, it was on and popping. It was just like, I had never known that this whole world was out there. So from that point, I was like any and everywhere that I could get my hands on. So went to Twitter, went to Facebook, went to Voxer, started listening to podcasts, started going on Instagram. So the whole point of this is that if there's anyone in here that's listening, either now or in the future, that is just like, where do I begin? Where do I begin to grow my PLN? My advice is start off where you are. If you use social media at all, then highly likely there is already a group of educators that's there, that's established. You just have to find them on most social media networks. Now, I'm speaking US centric, but I do know that on some international platforms as well, like for example, Facebook is international, Twitter's international, WhatsApp, Instagram, all of those places, you can find other educators there and you can connect with them. So there are so many different people everywhere. So you could just, find them and grow your PLN. And if you need some help identifying some people to follow, then just let me know. I put my social media out there. I'll put it back up at the end, but I'm going to show you a resource, so you probably won't even need me. But we already talked about Twitter chats. That's kind of where I got my start. Let me actually X out for right now. No, I'm not going to X out. I'm so sorry. Let me actually jump back in. All right, here we go. Hopefully you can still see my screen. But yeah, Twitter chats. Like, if you go online and you look for and you look up Cyberman Twitter chats. So Cyberman, that's CY. I'm gonna actually drop it in here. Cyberman. So look up Cyberman and Twitter chats, and you will see a list of different Twitter chats that are happening. So once again, just a recap of Twitter chats, they are where you go at a specific time. Everybody's there. You're looking at a hashtag. You're looking for the questions that come out. People answer the questions on a hashtag. So it's a lot of fun. It gets a little addictive. Pace yourself. Take it from me. Pace yourself. But, and also another caveat, the list is, I know that he and several others worked to create the list a few years ago. So I don't know how up to date it is, but I would just like, if you find one you're interested in, just go on Twitter and search and see when it was last active, and it might still be going on. So yes, absolutely. The latest news on Twitter. And thank you so much, Lisa, for dropping the link. So that is a link right there. So absolutely. Okay. So there is a list of Twitter chats. In addition, Voxer groups. Lisa brought up Voxer. I 100% love Voxer. I have not been on it very much lately. Let me first tell you what it is before I tell you why I have not been on it. So Voxer is like a free walkie-talkie app. It's iOS, it's Android, it's web-based, it's free. Freemium. There are premium features you can pay for. But just to use it, totally free. So what it does, it's like a walkie-talkie. You talk into it and it will record your message asynchronously. People can listen to it live, or they can go back and listen to it. And I absolutely love this. Like, this helps me keep in touch with people regardless of time zones. And we're all learning and growing together. Like, I'll tell you a little bit in a little bit. I just said a little bit twice. But in a little bit, I will tell you a little bit about an organization I run. And but we have 2 Voxer rooms because it caps out at 500. And we have people in there from everywhere. We have people in there from obviously the US where I'm based. We have people from Canada. We had somebody in, I want to say she was in Argentina. We have somebody in Ghana. We have a few people in the Philippines. We have people in Australia in the group. And I mean, we are all talking like we're sitting in the same room together. It's crazy. So, and I see what Lisa's saying. Yes, love Voxer so much. Me too. Me too. And Susan's saying Voxer uses up my phone battery quick. I totally get it. Yeah, it'll do that. It will definitely do that. The reason I have not been on Voxer as much lately is because Voxer is my tool that I use in the car when I'm driving in between states to go to work because I live in one state and work in another. So, my commute, it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's like 45 minutes. So I use it and I listen to what people have said, and I chime in with my own stuff. But since we haven't been really going anywhere, I have not been using it. So I need to get back on there. Yeah, Voxer is super cool. It reminds me of the Nextel phones back in the day that are like chirp chirp, you know. So I really love Voxer. It's a neat tool. Okay. So just kind of fast forwarding to how all of this ended up playing into my journey. Really, it helped me become a better lifelong learner. Yeah, Lisa. Yeah, the Nextel ones, Monica. I'm sorry, Monique and Lisa. I remember. Yes, absolutely. Same here. Same here. But yeah, so all of these Twitter chats, Voxer groups, now Facebook groups. Facebook groups have been hot lately, but they have really helped me to become a lifelong learner or to become a better lifelong learner. From being connected with other people, then I really embraced giving my students the opportunities to create. So this is an actual shot from my final year in the classroom, which was the 2015 school year, which is right before I left for my role in central office right now. So what I currently do is I work with schools to help teachers integrate technology and help principals, help pretty much anyone who needs it. Like lately it has morphed to students, parents. I mean, it's always been students, but parents, just anyone who needs our technical assistance, and that's what I do now. Um, but yeah, I learned, I people really sold me on the idea of giving my students opportunities to create, to make learning stick, and also to ask students what they wanted to learn about. Now, this final year, 2015-2016 school year, then my students were obsessed with this thing called the hoverboard. I know I'm dating myself right now, but they were just like, yeah, like I asked them to write about something in tech they wanted to learn more about. And I had maybe 160 students that year. There had to be like 40 of them that wrote about a hoverboard. And I was just like, you know what? By the end of the year, we are going to see a hoverboard in this class. I didn't know where I was going to get a hoverboard, but I was just like, we're going to make it happen because y'all are obsessed with this hoverboard. So we will make it happen. So, throughout that year, then we were continuing with the whole critical thinking. We did something, Figure It Out Fridays, where we would learn about different things together. We would explore drones. We would explore Breakout EDU. I remember came out like right around that time. Also, there was something else too. I think it was 360 video. All of these different technologies, and we were just figuring them out together. And I really wanted for my students to be producing once again to make learning stick. So when I got word that I was going to be coming to this current position, I was just like, oh, well, now I have a teacher bucket list of everything I want to accomplish before the end of the year. And I remember that this was something I did with my PLN, right? I was just like, okay, so what kinds of things should I do? And I would like Periscope them out. Periscope, if you're not familiar with that, that's like a video live streaming tool. And huge shout out to the Passoscope EDU community. They are a great community of educators using Periscope the third Thursday of the month. And Lisa, yes, Figure It Out Friday. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun on Figure It Out Friday. Yeah. But we would Periscope out like our Figure It Out Fridays as well as other things. And, I would like not put the camera on my students' faces, but I would like kind of capture what they were doing with their permission, of course. And our very last Figure It Out Friday actually fell on a Tuesday, which was my last day in the classroom. It was the day before Thanksgiving. And I figured out a way to get the hoverboard. And that was the last thing that we figured it out. that we figured out together. So that was like some collaboration with the students on that, right? So once again, this is where we were. We're looking for collaboration, passion, and reinvention. So this kind of takes us to the next part, which is passion. So I am going to ask you all right now a question. You can feel free to drop it in chat, or if you want to respond audibly, feel free to do that as well. But how have your passions influenced you as an educator? So I'll give y'all some wait time. I just call stuff out when I see it.
Sarah, can you hear me? It's Lisa.
Hey, Lisa. Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, girl, I'm doing great. It is so wonderful to hear your voice and get inspired with what you're sharing. I'll just share that my passion, and I know you know this, but most people here probably don't, but my passion to support new teachers, having left the principalship some years ago and knowing the challenges that new teachers face, drove me to start a new teacher chat. And I did that pretty much on my own, Sarah, for 7 years, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 o'clock Pacific time. And it was a great passion project for me. I kind of wrapped it up a couple of years ago because it became just really, really challenging. And what we found through research is that there aren't that many new teachers on Twitter, but that was one way that I turned my passion into a piece on Twitter. And so for many, many years, and even now, I am known as an expert in new teachers. And then I'll just say, secondly, my passion to serve the community is what drove me to run for school board. Nobody knew me in my community. I ran against 3 incumbents who had been on the board, one of them for 20 years, and I beat the longest standing incumbent, you guys. And I am now on my school board serving my community here in the city of Whittier. And it's just amazing to me to be on the other side of things, having been a building principal and now becoming a board member. So it can happen, you guys. We need educators in the political schema. We need educators to step up and take positions of leadership in politics. So please know that it can happen. And I ran on a shoestring budget, and I still took second place beyond the biggest longstanding incumbents.
Wow, what a story. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lisa. Like, you are such an inspiration, and I always love seeing you lead by doing. So I mean, you truly inspire me. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Sarah, this is Monique.
Hey, Monique.
I just wanted to share. I really appreciate hearing what I just heard. So thanks to Lisa for sharing her story. But my passion comes through and the way it influenced technology or influenced me as an educator is working in the school district as a teacher and as an administrator in the special education operations department. So once I got to first of all, I love working with teachers, so that's my passion. But once I started seeing a lot of the inequities in learning opportunities for kids in SPED, as well as learning opportunities for special education teachers, I was like, okay, got to get with this technology thing. And I already had a platform for PD, so me growing teachers in that way and already connecting them through that PD platform, I was also able to learn a lot of technology, which ed tech is my baby. I love it.
Yes.
Ed tech and professional development, being able to bring technologies, new technologies into school districts, getting the teachers all excited about it so that not only their excitement, drives them within PD, but that it also will drive them once they get into the classrooms to be inclusive of all kids, which is my I guess my nucleus. I guess that's in so many words, in a roundabout way, how my passion has influenced me as an educator. Did that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love hearing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so inspiring. So really appreciate you, Monique. So thank you so much. And I think that someone else is, Lisa was saying in the chat, yes, so much inequity. We have found this widespread in our district when the COVID pandemic hit. Absolutely. And I saw that Stormy shared, my passion is to connect students face to face virtually with students around the world virtually so they can see that the world is a friendly place and that we are all connected. Absolutely. This is great. This is fantastic. I want to thank you all so much for sharing your passions. Like, y'all are getting me all fired up. I'm just like, yes.
So, Dr. Sarah, can I share?
Oh, absolutely.
I know I typed something, but that's just part of how I do my passion, right? But like the who just talked, I don't know, my brain is fried.
Oh, Monique.
Whoever just shared her passion, that is exactly it. The equity issues, forget COVID, forget this current situation we're in, but in the equity in education is ed tech is the only thing that's going to fix it. It's the only thing that's going to level the playing field and allow our students to access the content. It's not about if they have a device. It's not about if they get to go to summer camp. It's we are doing malpractice and injustice to these kids every day. So yeah, that there's my passion. So thank you for igniting it again, whoever the last person was.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Stormy. Yes, absolutely. I hear you that, like, especially now we're seeing this, but I mean, it's been there the whole time, but I mean, it is really in our face right now that our students need to have access. They need to have transformational learning opportunities, and it is past time to get this all in here. So absolutely. So I appreciate you sharing that 100%. So, all right, cool. And Jennifer saying EdTech needs to be accessible for all, and many tools aren't ADA compliant. That is so clutch right there. Yes, 100%. So, yeah, working together towards this, that is definitely something that we all need to do as a profession. So, okay, absolutely. All right, so story time. Rewinding back to 1983. Actually, this did not happen in 1983. I don't really remember 1983 all too well, but my chorus teacher in 1998, we did an end of the year show, and each year it had like a different theme. So this one was movie soundtracks. So 1998, we did our end of the year show. It was my junior year, and there was a line from the movie Flashdance. Y'all may remember this movie right here, right? And he said, and I have to channel my Mr. Johnson. He was like one of my favorite teachers, still is, right? He said, everyone, I want you to remember this. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. Take your passion, make it happen. That was like a line from the Flashdance song, What a Feeling. And that just, even thinking about that now, oh my gosh, that gives me some goosebumps. Like at the time it didn't. I was 16, I was, being silly and just laughing. But now when I think about that, take your passion, make it happen. I mean, those are like the magical words. So this is me as a, I guess, 7th grader, 7th, 8th, maybe. And at the time, I thought I was very passionate. I was just like, oh, yeah, I have my passions, right? I was passionate about music. I was passionate about, like I said before, basketball. And I was also very passionate about LL Cool J. But one of my big loves was music. And so, that's kind of where I met Mr. Johnson, and where he dropped those words of wisdom on me. Now, I thought that I was going to be like the next Beyonce or something, but these dance moves would prove otherwise. That is from that spring chorus show, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to something that my dad says. My dad always says, and he denies that he said this when I was a kid, but I remember him always saying this: plan your work and work your plan. So looking at that, thinking of our passions as educators. Now, we could take our passion, our planning, and remove all obstacles. Make this like a moonshot, right? Like, what would happen if? What if? I hear people say a lot, what if? So you take these passions, you plan them out, and you shoot for the moon, and we can find ourselves in this sweet spot right over here. So collaboration and passion equals magic. So one concept that has stood out a lot to me is the idea of a magical moment. So remember at the beginning how we talked about billions of eyes have billions of eyes and see billions of things. So when your billions, when you find a need and your brain finds a solution and you decide whether or not to act on it, that is that magical moment. So let's take it back to the PLN. So we've already talked about Twitter. We've talked about Voxer. We've talked a little bit about other social media platforms. I'm just going to share. I'm going to share some examples of some people who have taken this collaboration and passion and made magic happen. So the first one is the Passoscope EDU movement. So definitely check them out. Valerie Lewis is pictured there. She's kind of the glue behind the operation, holding it all together. Valerie, huge shout out to her. But Passoscope EDU, I briefly mentioned before, they're a group of educators who use the Periscope tool to discuss education, to show kind of what they're doing, what they're working on, what they're learning together. It's very transparent and very, very cool. Okay. There's also Restorative Justice Chat, which is on Twitter and Voxer. So started here by Victor and Kate. So you see them listed right there. And another one, I agree 100%, Lisa. She is a passionate leader, 100. So talking about Valerie in the Passoscope community, and also the RJ Chat people, they are passionate, and Christy as well. Christy Kate is in Texas, and she started this really cool initiative called Waffles and Wi-Fi on Wednesday for administrators. So she took that collaboration and passion and she made magic happen with it. So I remember she was talking about how she started it, and there was someone, Ashley Hurley was doing something similar in North Carolina. So when Christy heard about it, she was just like, oh, cool, I can do this for my whole district. And so she has like a whole district with the administrators doing waffles and Wi-Fi on Wednesday. So yes, just taking those social media connections, and just activating them, right? Okay, so I'll bring up right now the Iste standards for educators. So if you all, let me grab that link for you. Iste standards for educators. So I'm going to drop it into the chat. But pretty much these standards, and I'll tell you the backstory behind them. If you're not familiar with the Iste standards for educators, they are a set of different standards, aspirational standards. I was on the technical working refresh team that refreshed these back in 2017. And they have standards for students, for educators, for coaches, for leaders, for computer science. I think that they might also have some new ones now as well, but it's escaping me. But if you look at these different roles, these different aspirational roles, these are all things that we should be. And they are ways that we can help support our students when it comes to their own learning. So one of my favorite standards in there is the learner standard, and it talks about PLNs and the collaboration and just working together. So absolutely. So we talked about the collaboration and the passion. Now we're going to talk about the reinvention. Okay, so this is the last part. It's going to take us home. So question for you, dropping it. How do you reinvent yourself as an educator? I think it was Don Wettrick. He said that he was talking to his dad, who is an educator. I might be getting this wrong, so excuse me if I am. But somebody was talking to their father, who is an educator, who told them you can either teach for 20 years or you could teach the same year 20 times. Those are two different things. So the goal is growth and reinvention. So my question, and I'm gonna give y'all some wait time, so feel free to either unmute and speak to this or talk or speak to it in chat. How do you reinvent yourself as an educator?
Sarah, it's Lisa again, and I kind of talked about it the first time, but um, my older son, who's in politics and he lives in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he had been encouraging me for years. When I left the principalship, Mom, you should run for city council. Mom, you should run for school board. And I was like, no, that's for other people. I'm an educator. Okay, I'm an educator. That's not for me. And he would like pawn the face and be like, oh my God, mother, but you have you have this passion to serve, how to speak, you're a leader in your community. So the way that I reinvented myself, Sarah, literally is to take my educational skills, knowledge, my ability to speak in front of people, massive amounts of them as a former principal, and place those talents into the political arena. So, and let me tell you, it was challenging to have to think like a politician while bringing my educational tapestry, if you will, with me. But it worked, and because I'm put my mind to it, I wrote and journaled about it every day. I had signs up all around my house that said, thank you that I win the election, over and over and over. I had affirmations on my phone, and so that reinvention was so critical, because when we don't step into the political arena as educators, then other people are going to do it for us. Other people who are not educators, real estate agents, and nothing against realtors, but your insurance agents, these are the people, you all, that are sitting on school boards across the country, and they know nothing about education. So, okay, and maybe they might know a little bit because they're a parent, but you know what, you get me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So reinventing myself as a politician now, whose foundational purpose and meaning is to educate my community about the need for technology, the need for the arts, the need to bring equity and diversity conversations into our district has been huge for me. So, it's been a big reinvention piece, and it just been an incredible start to this journey. In December, I'll only have been on my school board for 2 years, and I'll say this really quickly. I am now, you all, a power broker and a leader on my board after just 2 years. So when you set your mind to it, it can happen.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm like giving you all the snaps right now. That is awesome. That is awesome. And I love what you also said about like the affirmations and the speaking things into existence. Like I think that is so powerful. So I love that you brought that up. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And I'm seeing some great comments in the chat. Jennifer's saying, get outside your comfort zone, never stop learning. Monique is saying, remaining current and involved with professional organizations, connecting with tribes in education PLN, and becoming a lifelong learner. Natasha's saying, start with the students, work with their interests, and grow with time. Yes, you'll incorporate more things in class, but also you grow with every group of students you meet. Susan's saying, reinvention happens every year. As I rally my staff for the quote of the year this year was, we are not in the business of just educating students, but we are in the business of saving lives. Yes. Also, by challenging yourself to take on roles that maybe you never saw as a place that you would belong, and growing through challenging myself and serving larger groups of children. Excellent, Natasha. Absolutely. So this is great. This is fantastic. So a lot of great ideas for reinvention. And thank you, Stormy, for dropping a link in the chat about how you're stretching the summer, the Wakelet. I can't wait to go back and check that one out. So absolutely.
It has some PD I did about authentic audience at the top about the global goals and everything. But further down, there's some actual evidence of my students connecting. And so that's what keeps me inspired, is watching them, solve plastic pollution problems, and they're only 6, and nobody else thinks they can use technology. Well, they're changing the world. So
that is so dope. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they are never too never too little to be very mighty. So absolutely, I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So, slide in there because we were talking a little bit about digital equity, but I'll tell you a little bit about reinvention. I'll go really quickly because this is one last story for y'all. So, I had been connected for about a year and a half on September 26th, 2014. It was a Friday night. I was sitting on the couch with my phone going on Voxer, and I was in a side conversation with one of my good friends, Franz Davis from Texas, and we were talking. I had recently gone to Haiti because, like, my family's from there, so we had gone to visit, and I came across my cousin who had been a New York City math teacher. He moved back to Haiti, and so we were talking, and he was telling me about the fantasy sports that he was doing with his students. And so when I was talking with Rafan, she brought up gamification in math, and she was talking about fantasy sports. And I was just like, oh, well, matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna just roll the audio tape. I don't even need to spoil it for y'all. So this is what I told her. If it plays. Oh, it wants to open the browser. Okay, you know what? We don't need to do all that. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version as to what it said because we only have 8 minutes. So I said, you and my cousin should talk shop. Oh, and here it goes. It's trying to open it. Nope. Okay, fine. You're open. So it's opening. So I'll go ahead and let it play because it's nothing like a primary source. If it opens quickly, then we'll let it play. Cue the Jeopardy music. Okay, here we go. I kind of fancy myself an educational matchmaker, and you and my cousin definitely need to meet and to talk shop because I think that you guys would really, really dig each other's ideas. Like, seriously. He has been, I don't remember exactly what he taught or what level he taught, but I know that there's something math in there. And he was talking about gamifying it. So he and Chris need to talk also. So Chris is another one of my friends who's really big into gamification, taught me a lot about it. So she said something, I don't remember what she said, but she was just like, oh, okay, cool, that sounds good, or something similarly encouraging. I don't remember exactly. But there was a second, and I saved the conversation because I knew that, like, once I saw kind of how this, I don't want to spoil it for y'all. I'll wait till I get there. But once I saw what happened, like, down the line, I was like, oh, I need to go back and save these original sources because these are, like, they'll always bring me back to the beginning, like, to that magical moment. And I can always go back and hear this conversation that just pretty much changed the trajectory of my professional life. So at that point, after she said something to the effect of, oh, yeah, that sounds cool, then this next message, and I'll spare you the whole loading time, but I said, you know what? I think that might be something. Thanks for the inspiration indirectly. You can see that part over here. The educational matchmaker, that's about to be me. And at that point, that's when I decided to create a Twitter account and just kind of ask people about themselves and try to make some connections, like, directly, because that was something I didn't really see at the time. So created the education matchmaker account. This was the birth of EduMatch, and this was the very first tweet on September 26th. I didn't really have a whole lot of faith in it at the time, but I figured, it's worth a shot, might as well, right? And so I created a logo in Google Drawings. This was my first time using it. And so at that point, I tweeted out, like, okay, this is what I want to try. Tell me about you, anybody who is, willing to try this. So someone in Australia, the very first person was from Australia, like half a world away. So we started out global. And so he told me about himself. I matched it up to different hashtags and tweeted it out over the course of 24 hours, asked him at the end of the day how to go. He's just like, oh, I met so many people, you should keep this going. So I did. At that point, I set up a Google form, made it more official, set up a website, put the Google form on there. By the end of the weekend, 10 people had signed up, done the whole process. As people signed up, then they asked, oh, well, have you considered doing blah, 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 blah. So part of the blah, blah, blahs were, I'll show you. Well, first, the current state of EduMatch. We have a much better logo. Somebody, when it actually, a few months in, when it started to be a regular thing, then someone gave us a logo. They gifted us a logo. But we started doing Twitter chats. We started doing a Facebook group. We started the Voxer groups. We started doing a podcast. We went on Instagram. Those slides probably look very familiar to you from the beginning of the presentation. We had a photo album because we started meeting up at different face-to-face events like conferences and stuff. So people took pictures and put them in the album. Eventually, we created a nonprofit as well as a publishing company, and now we have like 46 different books that are out. So all of that came from just that one random crazy conversation. But the underlying theme behind it, the thing that I would say has been my biggest takeaway from EduMatch has been the need for deeper connections. You know, a lot of times we might meet one another and we're just like, hey, what do you do? Oh, that's cool. I do this too. So we do this thing. We have a shared thing in common. So what do you think about X? Oh, okay, cool. Well, I think blah, blah, blah. Okay, nice to meet you. Have a good night. Have a good life. And that's it. And like, we need to go further than that. We need to get deeper than that. Like, I have never imagined that some of my closest friends on paper would look like the direct opposite of me. But by getting to know them, like a 360 view of the person, like not just knowing, you know, about this really cool thing that they do, but also knowing their likes, their dislikes, about their family, their background, how they grew up, how that impacted how they see the world. It, for me personally, this comes to the personal part of the PLN. Personally, it has grown me so much. And I've been fortunate and blessed to have conversations with people who see the world very differently than I do, and be able to actually understand where they're coming from, as opposed to just like shutting down, like, oh, this person has no idea what they're talking about, you know? So these deeper connections, that is like the takeaway from the PLN that I got out of it. So that's kind of where we're at, right? So this was our goal today, to look at collaboration, passion, reinvention, and find ourselves at the middle. But what we can do now, you know, we can take history and her story and make it our story. So just to leave y'all with the road ahead, just CPR, collaborate, find your passion, reinvent yourself, rinse and repeat. So I want to thank you all so much for coming through. My name is Sarah Thomas. I'm going to put my info in the thing. Sarah the teacher. There we go. And oh my goodness, I love it. I'm looking at the chat right now. So thank you all so much. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can come back on camera and just officially thank you all for being here. So I really appreciate you all. I appreciate everything that you shared. And let's stay connected. And if we're not already connected, then please, please, please do connect. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. So thank you all so much.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Monique. Always great to see you.